Am I the asshole for rehoming my son's 5th pet hermit crab? My 37M wife, 35F, is really insistent on teaching our son 8M responsibility. For the most part, I have absolutely no problem with this. At 8, our son knows how to wash and fold his own laundry, with our assistance and supervision, make simple meals like grilled cheeses, eggs, etc., and he keeps his room clean. He also has a pet hermit crab. My wife bought it from a pet store thinking it was an easy pet to teach our son responsibilities. However, I feel like altogether, at 8, is far too much responsibility if we have the pet. So far I have been proven right 4 times. Sadly, we have had to bury 4 hermit crabs because our son sometimes forgets to feed him. I work 60 hours a week as an essential worker, so I only find out about the deaths after the fact when I come home and find my son sobbing in his mother's lap with her promising to get a new one. I told her and my son the last hermit crab he had would be the final one. He clearly isn't old enough to handle everything that's on his plate. My wife on the other hand seems to think that because they're just hermit crabs they're practice pets. I told her that was a disgusting way to think about them, as they are living creatures and can't defend themselves and need us to care for them when we take them in as pets. It's honestly been a huge point of contention for us. Last week, however, I returned home from work one day to find a 5th hermit crab in my son's room. My wife had went out and bought one behind my back. I laid it straight out to my son and my wife that I will be placing a cheap camera at the tank and checking it every day to make sure it gets fed, and that if it doesn't get fed for even one day, I am giving it away. My son cried and pleaded and promised to take better care of this one. And I can't really take away his gift for no reason. But just as I suspected, after the first few days were fine, but after the 3rd or 4th day I saw that nobody even went to the cage the entire day. Not my son, or my wife. So I told them that in the morning I will be finding a new owner and for every animal that my wife tries to buy from now on. And I did just that despite their protests and begging. My brother has a friend that's really into animals like turtles, snails and hermit crabs, so I knew he would be a good choice and met up with him to rehome the pet. And ever since my son has been periodically throwing fits and my wife says that I caused it. Most people say I did the right thing, but I truly hate to see my son like this and I feel like maybe it could have gone different. Am I the asshole? Edit. Wow, this post took on a life of its own. I wrote this in the car before work after a fight with my wife when I posted it. Sorry I can't respond to everyone, but I am going to take some time and read all of your responses. Not the asshole practice pets. Tell her she's a practice wife, see how that goes down. Not the asshole. Your son's just a kid but your wife is the asshole. There is not such thing as a living practice pet, and shame on her. Not the asshole. I like the idea of teaching responsibility, but animals shouldn't bear the brunt of the consequences for failure. Unfortunately, asshat pet stores treat hermit crabs and similar animals as disposable, and make a lot of money doing it. Stand your ground. Your son will learn responsibility in his own time, don't do it on the backs of animals. Not the asshole. Your wife is the asshole and undermining you. Stay firm on this issue and do not let any more pets into your house. Your wife and child will try to test your patience, but do not give in like your wife has. She's allowing these animals to basically starve to death. It's so cruel and inhumane. An 8-year-old is far too young to have such a big responsibility as looking after a pet. Your kid needs to be taught that you can't always get what you want. Instead, maybe if he is good, as a reward you could adopt a pet on his behalf. Like, adopt an elephant, scheme at your local zoo or WWF. Your kid would get regular letters about the progress of the animal, and a cuddly toy animal too. Good luck. Hermit crab care. I have 3 crabs of my own, and a common mistake many first-time owners make is assuming the crabs are dead when, in fact, they are doing something called molting. They shed their exoskeleton to grow, and if they cannot do this underground, they will do it on the surface and will appear lifeless. The biggest way to tell a dead hermit crab is by a rotten fish smell. Hermit crabs are also social animals, and will be stressed if they are alone. They need a couple of friends. Info. What is the tank size? Do you keep it warm and humid? How deep is the sand? Not the asshole. Honestly, I would be furious if my significant other saw animals as practice pets, and kept buying new ones but not taking care of them. Not the asshole. It is way too much responsibility to lay on an 8-year-old child. Kids shouldn't have pets like that. It should be a family decision and therefore a family responsibility. And 8-year-old's brain isn't developed enough to take that kind of responsibility. Of course they can still have some, like taking out trash and folding laundry etc. where you're there to guide. NTA. Also it's prob not just feeding that's the reason for their death. Hermit crabs are actually very difficult to care for. They need to have a friend, so at least 2, a 20-gallon tank, 6 inches of substrate, regular water and salt water at all times. Plus all hermit crabs are wild caught, sometimes they glue the shell onto them. Don't get hermit crabs, get a goldfish. Edit to add, fake goldfish. Not the asshole. Your wife's attitude toward these poor animals is disgusting, and she's teaching your son to be the same way. Good for you for standing up for the poor creatures. Not the asshole. Pets aren't toys or teaching tools, they're living things. In my country your family could be barred from keeping animals of any kind for a while for this kind of thing. The concept of practice pets is cruel and shows intent to allow harm to come to the animal. Not the asshole, of course. Your son clearly isn't able to handle it by himself, which is fine because he is only 8. Your wife is the asshole for sure. No such thing as a practice pet. All pets are pets, full stop. I suggest sitting down with him and explaining that once he is ready you will all discuss getting another animal. If he wants to practice he can get a Tamagotchi. Not the asshole. Hermit crabs are just as important as cats, so would you let him have 5 practice kittens? Hells no. Not the asshole, but your wife is. There is no reason any of them should have starved. Yay, pets can teach responsibility, but ultimately the burden of the care falls on the parents. It's your wife's job to make sure they get fed, especially if you've gone through so many. Your wife wants to allow your son to keep killing them and replaces them immediately. That isn't teaching responsibility, it's teaching the opposite. Even if he lets them die she will get him a new one. I love animals, and though I'm not a crab person who thinks it is okay to just let them die. How is that teaching any responsibility? Not the asshole, and please don't let her get him another one. Hermit crabs actually require very specific care, and it's not reasonable to expect an 8-year-old to do it properly. Most importantly, they need their temperature and humidity levels closely monitored. They have gills that have to stay damp, otherwise they can't breathe and will suffocate. They also need access to separate salt water and fresh water sources, substrate that is deep enough to dig down and molt, friends they do not do well alone, and lots of room to run around and climb. It's so sad that it's become normal for crabs to live only a month or so. If taken care of properly, they can actually live for quite a long time. I have 4 myself that I've had for over 10 years. No living thing should ever be a throwaway. It's more than likely stress and not your son killing them. They actually need a huge enclosure and they live in colonies. Their temperatures and substrate are very specific. They need access to fresh and salted water at all times. They need a habitat that is climbable and one they can bury themselves in. They're actually terrible pets for children. Not the asshole. No. Pets aren't disposable, WTF. You did the right thing. Pets aren't tools for responsibility, they're living creatures. The fact that wife kept getting hermit crabs however is a bit concerning, as there are many other ways to teach responsibility. As for the way son is feeling, he'll understand when he's older. To him it's like a toy is being taken away. It may not be your son's fault your hermit crabs are dying, but yours. If you don't have them in a tank with regulated humidity and minimum 6 inches of sand for them to bury to molt, a process that can take over a month, and replacement shells, as well as access to both fresh and salt water, and a diet of actual fruits, veggies, protein, and calcium, the crab most likely died from being mistreated, not from not being fed. I highly suspect this is the case since you 3 have managed to kill 4 hermit crabs already, so everyone sucks here since your son is most likely not the only one who mistreated the pet. Source: have kept a colony of hermit crabs for over 5 years. Not the asshole, but your wife is. Why wouldn't she assist an 8-year-old with caring for his pet? Buy your kid a plant if he needs to repeatedly neglect something to death. Honestly, I think ending the cycle of him killing 5 pets is good for him. Repeatedly killing animals is not good for him, and he shouldn't get stuck on the idea that there are no consequences to killing a living creature. Your wife is an asshole. Practice pets. No, you saved a life. OFC, you are not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your wife's idea of, teach our son responsibilities, with, practice pets, coupled with no repercussions after the death of 4 pets sits very wrong with me. I think this is a good lesson to learn that if you can't care for another life, you should not try to. And then revisit the thing after a year or so. So, not the asshole, your wife being the asshole for enabling and promoting bad behavior. Not the asshole. Pets aren't too much responsibility for some 8-year-olds, but it depends on the child. At 8 I was perfectly capable of looking after my kitten providing my parents bought the food and litter. I needed help with the litter tray to avoid spills but that was all. I got a dog at 13 and there was never any issues, but my mum was in charge of vet appointments because I was under 18 and couldn't fill out the paperwork. My brother's 15 and he still struggles to keep a pet, he needs my parents' help. It depends on the child, but there's no such thing as a practice pet. That's absurd and cruel. If your child grows up with a family pet they'll learn to take care of it, but your son seems to struggle with the sole responsibility and shouldn't be expected to take care of a pet on his own. Everyone sucks here. Your wife's opinion that they are practice pets is disgusting, but why are you allowing these pets to die? Teach your son responsibility by modeling it. Did you guys just let the clothes pile up around you until he learned to wash them? Did you let him starve until he learned to cook food for himself? Why are you letting pets die until he learns to care for them? Also adding that your wife is doing the opposite of teaching responsibility. She is teaching him life is disposable and if he kills something she will just fix it for him and anything, even a life, can be replaced. So gross. Gah. Not the asshole. I don't care about the crabs, but your wife just sends wrong messages to your son, that he can fuck up without consequences and mom tries to undermine your better parenting. An 8-year-old should not be responsible for the life of a pet. They can be assigned the required chores but an adult needs to be monitoring the situation. An adult also needs to be researching the animal and making sure it is being cared for in the correct way. Your son didn't cause the pets to die, you and your wife did. You were the ones with the real responsibility here. Stop buying him hermit crabs? My parents wouldn't have let me get past strike 1 and he's on strike 5. Going with everyone sucks here for not making sure an animal under your roof is being cared for properly, not the asshole for rehoming it. It's fine to make it his responsibility to do the actual thing but it's on you to make sure he does it. You're both irresponsible pet owners and the best thing you can do is save this poor hermit crab from starving, or going without water. Please look up proper hermit crab care so you can know it's going to a home that they actually give it proper husbandry. They're not as simple as sticking them in a tiny cage with sponge and some food. What are they, trial pets? Did you get a trial kid before you decided on this little hellion? How about just no more pets until he's old enough to handle the responsibility? And maybe your wife can get off her ass and take 5 minutes out of her oh-so-busy day to teach him some responsibility. Isn't that your job? Instead you're teaching him that the world is his personal playpen, everything is disposable, and mom is enabling this. Hermit crabs are not practice pets. They live for years. And if they're dying like that then it's more about just not feeding them. They need other crabs to thrive, a warm humid climate, and proper substance on the floor of the aquarium. I have a feeling your wife has this crab in a shitty cage and is giving it tap water. Clearly no one actually cares about the hermit crabs because a basic amount of research would tell them that you don't buy just one. Hermit crabs are social animals and the moment you gave your child just one you were setting them up for failure and the hermit crab up for a sad and lonely death. Your wife as a person sucks for using living creatures to offer your son living creature practice. Your wife sucks for getting the crab behind your back. You suck for snatching the thing away in some dramatic fashion. You two need to have an adult conversation where you come to a conclusion. Get him a Tamagotchi, get him a plant, get him some kind of actual practice. This isn't hard when you have a grown-up conversation. This is about teamwork as parents and spouses, not a shitty face-off. Wow. I might sound dramatic here but hearing my spouse say they're a practice pet and it doesn't matter if they die would completely change my outlook of them. I'd feel like, I had no idea that this person I love is so cold. It would be hard for me to accept that I was committed to them. They're just a completely different person than who I thought they were. Frowning face. Your wife shouldn't keep buying crabs especially behind your back, but you repeated her mistake by ignoring her input and doing what you wanted over her objections. You told your wife That's not a partnership. You're both wrong. Pets like that are harder to take care of than a cat or dog in a sense because they're in the cage, out of sight out of mind. A cat or a dog will come and find you for food and attention. A dog you can build an emotional bond your son forgets because he doesn't get emotionally attached. He's also 8. He requires reminding for this sort of thing. So if your wife is insistent, she should be the one to work on developing the skills it requires to remember daily feedings. Perhaps pair feedings the pet before lunch, or something. Not the asshole, you're actually a hero in my mind. A living being can't be a practice anything. With an 8-year kid, the only possibility of having a pet is that the parents have the pet and the child only helps them. He is not capable now, but your wife is, and she should take responsibility because your kid can't. The fits are probably a result of what your wife taught your kid. If you don't take care of something, don't worry, I'll buy you a new one, and now it's not happening anymore, so the kid doesn't understand why the rules are different now. Stay firm with your wife and be gentle while explaining to your kid. I'm assuming your wife is working as well. Otherwise she would be helping your son stay on a feeding schedule, right? If that's not the case, you and your wife need to have a serious conversation, because that's animal abuse regardless of whatever she thinks, them being practice pets and all. Plus the fact that your son keeps having them die, not on purpose necessarily, but the air dying, that has to be damaging to him. He's too young. He doesn't need a pet. He's 8, he's already doing more than most 8-year-olds. Good luck. You're not the asshole at all in my opinion, and I hope your wife can figure out how to see that. Not the asshole. Hermit crabs are living creatures and letting them starve is cruel. Your son can't even feed a crab 3 days in a row. He's definitely not responsible enough for a pet. Also, I'm laughing my ass off at your typo. Hermit crab. Little sentient poop in a shell. Hilarious tears of joy. Practice pets. Seriously. Were your son and wife practicing how to kill innocent living beings? How long does it take for a hermit crab to starve? Was it eating sand at a point because of hunger? I'm seriously so mad at you and your family right now. How about you get your son a Tamagotchi and teach your wife empathy? 4 animals starved to death in your home. Like WTF. And #X200B. Edit. Not the asshole for rehoming this one. You are the asshole for not doing it with the second poor crab. Not the asshole op. However, if your son is truly distraught over the loss of the pet, which it sounds like he is, maybe try taking him to said friend you gave the crab to. Maybe take him to an ani.al shelter once a week and help him volunteer. I wouldn't trust your wife though. Practice pet. Oh, the disdain I feel for her for that. Or maybe, like others said, get him a schedule. It can be a learning, bonding experience for you both. Not the asshole because all animals deserve to be treated humanely. But also I can't stop laughing at hermit crab. Not the asshole. We looked into getting hermit crabs ourselves, but when the owner said they could live up to 30 years, we as adults decided it was too much responsibility. There is no animal out there that deserves to be a practice pet. They're living creatures that deserve care and respect. Ask your son or your wife how they would feel if someone forgot to feed them for even a day. It doesn't seem like your son is capable of looking after a pet on his own at this age. The only thing I could suggest is to get a family pet that everyone is responsible for. You and your wife can supervise and show your son how to care for it in a common living area, such as the living room, where everyone can view the pet and know for sure that it's not being neglected. You can still teach your son responsibility this way, but with more supervision and direction. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. There are no practice pets. Get him a succulent or lucky bamboo, not a living breathing creature with feelings and a nervous system. You can find really cool plants that I'm sure he'd enjoy. I water my succulents once a month and they're happy. If your wife wants a starter pet, she needs to help your son take care of it. You don't teach responsibility by dumping an animal on an 8-year-old. You show them and help them get in the habit of caring for the pet under careful supervision. Not the asshole. Hermit crabs are living beings. They don't deserve to have a shitty owner that forgets to feed them, nor does any animal. It's animal abuse, plain and simple. Not the asshole. There is no such thing as a practice pet. I know this isn't the point, but hermit crabs aren't easy pets, if you're caring for them properly. Most people put them in a tiny tank, with 2 water dishes and call it good and some food and leave them there to live miserable lives. If your wife is the type to let 5 hermit crabs die from not being fed, then I doubt she's the type to help your 8-year-old set up a proper enclosure. Not the asshole. I'm glad somebody in your family is looking out for the well-being of these animals. Living creatures are not practice pets. Your wife is a huge awe. The link above will take you to Five Below's website. For $4 you can get him a virtual pet. That is a practice pet. I love animals and it breaks my heart that your wife is teaching your child that because it hermit crab is smaller and weaker than him its life means less. This is not a good path. What if as an adu he views women that way, or dogs, or cats, or you, or your wife? From someone that has been treated as less than it is not what you want your child to become. No one living thing is less than any other living thing. Not the asshole. It's terrifying that your wife views hermit crabs that way. If she really wants to teach the kid responsibility, I would have started out with a plant. Depending on the plant, they can be a lot cheaper and require a lot less care. I'd personally recommend some sort of succulent. Depending on the conditions of where you put it, it may only need to be watered once a week or every other week. A lot less care than a hermit crab would require. Not the asshole. Practice pets. Wow.